attention. When I say peace, you say is a lifestyle. Peace. 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 As the young brother said before, love is going to overcome hate. Love is going to overcome hate. My name is Erica Ford. Before I was 30 years old, I was involved in over 20 mass shootings. The only thing they weren't called mass shootings then. They were just called shootings in the hood. And I lost over 75 friends killed in these streets, not counting the numbers that went to jail for 25 and 30 years. Our community was destroyed. Families was devastated. Trauma was beyond describable. The vicarious trauma of violence is not getting addressed. And so I got Carl, who was one of my staff members at Life Camp, who lost his entire family to one bullet. We brought the Buffalo families back up here so that you don't forget Buffalo. But what I did with my pain and my anger is I built a movement with my friends. And we created something addressing the disease of violence and knowing that we had to help people heal. So yes, you can talk about guns, but we got to talk about the mindset that makes people do things beyond control. If we don't put resources in these black and brown communities where our babies are dying every single day, then we are not talking about addressing gun violence. And so I know that I had to work on both sides of the guns. And I began to work with the police who I know hated me. I worked with the elected officials that I know hated me. And nobody wanted me to succeed but the young people and their families. But I am able to stand here years later and say we did that. We built a system in New York City that not only addressed violence, but made New York the safest big city in America. What we do works. What we do works. I want to do a fact check real quick. People wear orange in this world because of me. People wear orange because years ago, I said the same way they got pink for breast cancer and red for whatever, we gonna do orange for peace. And white people with more resources and more money and more lift took it and made wear orange and all of that other stuff, and we love that because the dream became a reality, but just know where the pillow was and where the person was sleeping when the dream came out. We're standing here with community action, Greg. We're standing here with Arnita from Milwaukee. We're standing here with Kelly from Buffalo. We're standing here with young Brianna, who was born out of the March for Our Lives movement. Bria. Right? Because we don't want patronism, we want equity. We don't want you to just say Black Lives Matter. We want y'all to help us pass the Break the Cycle of Violence Act. Because before the shooting in Buffalo, Buffalo was oppressed. Buffalo had a food apartheid. In South Jamaica, they got a food apartheid. In Chicago, they got a food apartheid. Everywhere where we live, there's an issue with getting resources and oxygen to our children, and we want to stop that today. If we gonna stand together, then we gonna breathe together, we gonna eat together, we gonna live together. And see, this is this new shit. Everybody having allergies at their late ages. That's another form of warfare against us. So before I step off this stage, I want to say we got a fun piece. I can't hear you. Fun piece. Fun peace, fun peace, fun peace. The other thing that I want to say is let's not give in to the hate. Let's not give in to the hate. There's more people who are about love than there is that is about hate. And so let's get these resources in these communities. Let's help save these lives, and let's pass this Break the Cycle Act. Peace is a lifestyle.
Hey guys, I'm going to keep this short and sweet. I'm not on the agenda, but we need to acknowledge what just happened. And I want to let everyone know, everybody's fine. There is nothing to be concerned about. However, unfortunately, somebody decided to show up and put the fear that we live with every day to life. And so, thank you all for staying here. I love you all, and to the kids, to all of you kids, I love you, and we are going to fight for you. Everything is okay. Thank you for being here. Mwah!
When I say all power, you say to the people, all power. All power. When I say all power, you say to the people, all power. All power. When I say I am, you say a peacemaker. I am. I am. I am. I am. Clap it up, everybody, if you're a peacemaker out here. This is what our country needs. We need peacemakers. We need healers. We need those who are devoted to peace and justice and not violence and hate. Some asked me some time ago, why do I care so much about gun violence? So many names I could lift up. Breonna Taylor, Michael Brown, Tamir Rice, Sandra Bland. But I got a young man in my community whose life was lost at the age of 19. His name was Larry. Say his name, Larry. Say his name. Larry. At the age of 19, he was shot outside of a liquor store. A young man that we helped to get through high school in our neighborhood. We did his funeral. Over 500 young people came. When I asked the young people to lift your hands, if you've been to more than one funeral, all the young people in the church lifted their hands. I asked them, if you've been to more than two funerals, the young people lifted their hands. I asked them if you've been to more than 5 funerals. 500 young people in our church lifted their hands. I got as high as 10 funerals. I'm talking about high school students. And more than half of the young people in this church lifted their hands weeping. And I asked myself, what kind of preacher am I? What kind of leader am I? How could I call myself a leader while children are losing 10 of their friends before they graduate from high school? We need to acknowledge that we are not here just to call for new policies. We are here to call for a healing to the soul of America that has been sick for far too long. We're here to acknowledge that our collective psyche is not well. We all have been traumatized by violence. We point to a shooter and say he needs mental health services. But guess what? We need mental health services. We as a nation must scale up mental health and trauma healing so every human being in the United States of America has access to a therapist, to a healer, to public health services, and do not have to pay for it. We need a new social contract, one that invests our tax dollars in healing and peace rather than trauma and violence. And I got good news for you. In every city all across the country where we live and work and play and worship, we have peacemakers, frontline violence interrupters, credible messengers who are waking up every day with little to no resources to interrupt lethal conflicts so we can feel more safe in our communities. How many know we need to pay these loved ones a livable wage and make sure they have access to health care, just like we do police officers and firefighters in every city in America? So when you get back home, I need you to find these peacemakers. I need you to find these loved ones in these organizations like Erica Ford has mentioned, and become friends and partners and comrades with them. Advocate for them. Don't allow them to work in erasure and invisibility. And know that, as Erica said, we need to pass the Break the Cycle of Violence Act that is in the Senate and the House right now. Come on, everybody, repeat after me. Say, break the cycle. Say it again, break the cycle. We give much respect to the Biden administration who helped follow our lead and put $5 billion to fund peace all across the country in some of the previous bills. But now we got to pass the bills. So as we leave here, we must, as a people, unite behind the idea that gun violence is a public health issue. All of us have a responsibility. Everybody say all of us. Pat yourself on the chest and say, that means me, that means me. We have a responsibility to talk about gun violence as a public health issue. We must focus ourselves to reach for public health solutions that solve the violence that leads to suicides, homicides, intimate partner violence, and accidental shootings. And for those forces that seek to intimidate and paralyze our communities through hate, white supremacist terror that fuels your violence, I got news for you. I got news for you. You will not win. You will not win. There are more of us than there are of you. There are more of us than there are of you. And you will not win. I want to invite all of us to keep remembering, in the words of my Ferguson revolutionary comrade, the brother named Tef Poe. He said it like this. Repeat after me. Say, I believe that we will win. Say, I know that we will win. Put Put your fists up. Say, I know that we will win. Say, I know that we will win.
Please welcome to the stage Yolanda King, granddaughter of Martin Luther King Jr. and Coretta Scott King, joined by Jacqueline Corin, co-founder of March for Our Lives and survivor of the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School.
How many of you were marching with us in 2018 after the shootings in Parkland, Florida? Well, now we're back after the massacres in Uvalde, Texas, and Buffalo, New York, and at least 38 shootings in just over 22 weeks. How many of you are here to say enough is enough? Many of us have been wearing our marching shoes for years. But today we're telling Congress, we're telling the gun lobby, and we're telling the world, this time is different. This time is different because we've had enough. We've had enough of having more guns than people here in America. We've had enough of kids being afraid to go to school, grown-ups being afraid to go to grocery stores, and families who look like my family being afraid to go to their houses of worship. This time is different because this isn't about politics, it's about morality. Not right and left, but right and wrong. And that doesn't just mean thoughts and prayers. That means courage and action. Like so many of you, I come from a thoughtful, prayerful family. My grandfather was taken from the world by gun violence. And 6 years after his death, his mother, my great-grandmother, was killed in church during Sunday service. We all have been touched by tragedy. We all have been lifted up by hope. And we still believe that, as my grandfather once said, we'll be able to hew out of the mountain of despair a stone of hope. And this time is different because it isn't only about kids, it's about all of us. It's about all of us who cried when we heard that 11-year-old from Uvalde tell Congress about playing dead when the gunman killed her classmates. It's about all of us who were hurting when we heard about the moms and dads in Buffalo who were struck down while buying groceries and food for their families. It's about all of us who were called against gun violence, COVID, climate catastrophes, racism, and attacks on democracy. Are you ready, young and old and in between, to be the generations that make ourselves heard from ballots, not bullets? Are you ready to move beyond 50 years of fear and failure? Are you ready to forward to what our parents and grandparents called the beloved community? Together, we can carve that stone of love and hope out of that mountain of death and despair. Together, we can build a gun-free world for all people. My generation is with you for as long as it takes. So, with this being said, are you with us? Come on, I know you can scream louder. Are you with us? Are you with us? Let's do it.
Please welcome to the stage Becky Pringle, President of the National Education Association, joined by teachers, students, and parents.
The view from up here is magnificent. We are joined by educators and students who have come together with you to lift up our voices. I have my sister Randy Weingarten right here beside me, and I just want to say that I am so thankful for the students and parents and educators who are standing with us, who have survived and who are still mourning the loss of so many and so much. But they are pushing through that pain toward their purpose in hopes of never letting this happen again. That this time, we will finally take action in this country. 23 years ago, I was faced with the same question teachers all over this country were faced with 2 weeks ago when 19 children and 2 teachers were gunned down by an assault weapon. They said to me, Mrs. Pringle, am I safe? Will that happen here? I said, oh baby, this country will never let that happen again. And then Virginia Tech and Sandy Hook and Marjorie Stoneman Douglas and now Robb Elementary. So many schools and churches and synagogues and mosques and nightclubs and grocery stores and streets of this country have experienced gun violence. The difference in 23 years is that educators today can honestly say this won't happen unless we continue to stand strong and stand up. Will we stand up? We know that our students should be going to schools where they feel affirmed and safe and loved. We will not let this happen again. We will embrace the powerful words of James Baldwin. There is never a time in the future when my salvation will be here. The time is now. The time is always now. The time is now to stand up for our students. The time is now to hold our legislators accountable. The time is now to tell them if they don't do their jobs, we're coming for their
Becky. Look, I'm so grateful that Fred came up earlier. We know that there's so much anxiety, but we are on the front line of freedom and of safety and of getting to the end of the scourge of gun violence. Becky and I have traversed the country, as has David, as has Yolanda, and we want to thank everyone for March for Our Lives for doing these rallies in hundreds of places around the country to say enough is enough. And by the way, my name is Randy Weingarten. I'm a high school social studies teacher. I'm a New Yorker, I'm a wife, I'm a sister, I'm a union leader, I'm a grandmother, and most importantly, I am a human being who counts myself among the people who want to end gun violence. Are you with me? Make sure the Congress hears you. Are you with me? Are you with me? Every educator, every student, every survivor, where is she? Including my dear, dear friend, my Ling Ho-Shing from Parkland. They survived the shootings. They are here to fight to make sure it never happens again. Thank you. Look, you can stay with me. I need that. Okay. I need the hugs. We take this on, this fight for common sense gun laws, in the names of everyone who's been affected by gun violence. We take it on so people can worship or dance or shop without the fear of being shot. And teachers and parents take this on with particular urgency so our children, our students, as Becky said, can go to school without the fear of being shot. Schools should be places of hope, not fear. Schools should be safe sanctuaries, not fortresses. This is our fight for a welcoming and safe environment where everyone feels welcomed and safe. And that's why we are marching in hundreds of places in the United States today. It's a movement for safety, for freedom from gun violence. It's for the young and the old, the suburban, the rural, the urban, black and white, rich and poor, those who own guns and those who never want to be with a gun. We're facing a uniquely American epidemic, a toxic brew of guns and hate that has taken the lives of over 100 people every day. Mass shootings, homicides, suicides, domestic violence, accidental gun deaths on our streets, our stores, our places of worship, and in our schools. So you know, you've seen already the people that we have mourned today and honored today. And as David said, this time must be different. And as Mother Jones has said, we pray for the dead, but we fight like hell for the living. So while other countries have responded to their mass shootings with solutions that actually solve the crisis, here in the U.S., gun manufacturers and their profits seem more important than the lives of 10-year-olds. And the bottom line is, we got to get guns out of the hands of people who should not have them, and we got to get weapons of war off our streets. And here is the point I want to make to every politician. We've taken action when it comes to airline safety, when it comes to auto safety. We've passed laws to make our streets and our skies safer in response to accidents and tragedies. Why can't we do this for gun safety? Why? Why do the gun manufacturers get a pass? Why isn't kids' lives more important? this, you care about this. If you care about schools, you care about this. If you care about humanity, you care about this. So look, we know what works. Universal background checks, red flag laws, safe storage provisions, and bans on high-capacity magazines. And I want to say one more thing about teachers. Teachers want to be teaching. They do not want to holster firearms. We need fewer guns in schools, not more of them. And as we head back to school this fall, please arm us with resources, with books, with school counselors, not with bulletproof vests. Ironically, the same folks who say we should carry a gun in a classroom are the ones that are saying that don't trust us to pick up the appropriate books and curriculum for our nation's kids. So, I ask these politicians this: if we have the judgment to shoot a bad guy, why don't we have the judgment to plan our lessons? Let us teach. Trust us to help our students achieve their dreams and give us the time and the tools and the resources to do it. So enough is enough. Enough is enough. Enough is enough. Enough is enough. Not one more student, not one more educator, not one more community should be ravaged by the horror of gun violence. Thank you.
In their first major speech since 2018, please welcome to the stage X Gonzalez, along with fellow gun violence survivors.
Hi, everybody. My name is X Gonzalez. I used to be known as Emma, but now I go by X, and I use they, them pronouns. Happy Pride. I'm not a girl. That's the point. We are the survivors of gun violence. From Columbine, Sandy Hook, Buffalo, Uvalde, Oxford, Michigan, Parkland, Florida, DC, Chicago, and everywhere across this country. What I say here today is mostly directed at Congress. I've spent these past 4 years doing my best to keep my rage in check, to keep my profanity at a minimum so that everyone can understand and appreciate the arguments that I'm trying to make, but I have reached my fucking limits! I am not going to hold myself back anymore for the sake of somebody else's fragile ego. If you can't hear what I'm saying through the anger that I only have because of your inaction, that's a you problem. We are being murdered. Cursing will not rob us of our innocence. You say that you will bend over backwards to protect children in schools, but pour money into the gun industry and give firearms to our teachers and staff members instead of giving them the money for pencils and paper. You say that you want to protect children, but as soon as it's about black lives, you're all for tear gassing protesting children in the streets and ignoring the people who drive their cars into crowds of us. You say that queer and trans identities are immoral for children, but somehow conversations about what to do when a white supremacist terrorist inevitably tries to kill us are moral. You say that children are the future and you never fucking listen to what we say once we're old enough to disagree with you, you decaying degenerates. You really want to protect children? Pass some fucking gun laws! This is not an issue of mass shootings and schools. This is a problem everywhere in this country. Believing that school shootings are the only form of gun violence that needs to be eradicated is rooted in racism and classism. Putting police in schools will only protect children. Putting police in schools to protect children only swells the school-to-prison pipeline, which mainly affects black and brown children, and fully ignores the dangers of gun violence outside of school. How many ways can we say it? Gun violence does not discriminate. It happens everywhere and all the time. It has been happening everywhere all the time because you, Congress, have done nothing to prevent it. You have decided that gun violence is a fact of life, a natural disaster on par with tornadoes, hurricanes, and wildfires. We don't fucking buy it. This does not have to happen. We have watched other countries enact quick change in the face of gun violence over the decades. And you know something? It worked. We watched it work. It's not that difficult. If you are a congressperson who thinks that we cannot pass gun laws in this country because it's against the Constitution and America is a place for freedom, I bet you inject disinfectant. I was trying not to curse at the time I wrote this, and I changed some swear words for insults. We are living in a country with a backsliding and flawed democracy. And while you think that this is the founding fathers' dream come true, you've actually aided and abetted an ever-growing American nightmare that plagues everyone currently alive. Our government can't keep its hands off women's bodies. The poor and homeless are systematically rejected from the society as the rich get unbelievably richer. Refugees are subject to racist attacks, and white supremacist terrorist insurrection almost killed a lot of you in office currently. Did you fucking forget that? If any of this had happened in another country, you would have used it as an excuse to colonize and drop bombs. But when it happens here, you replicate it and maintain. You think we don't see that? You want to be helpful? You want to make this world a better place, Congress? There's one thing that you in office can take away from this speech. It's pass the fucking gun laws. How can we convince you that this is vital for our collective survival? Do you honestly think things are okay like this? Do you honestly think this is a good place to live? You might be wondering, X, I haven't heard from you much these past 4 years. What have you been doing? Why aren't you on Twitter? I've seen your colleagues around. The answer is very simple. If you don't have anything nice to say, don't say it. Everything that I have said now is stuff that I've said before. I didn't want to add anything same old to the conversation when nothing has changed. I'm not going to clutter the timeline with my unhinged ravings. My PTSD has me feeling suicidal thoughts that I've managed to very positively turn towards anger instead, and that's what I'm doing here today. I don't share all these raging thoughts on Twitter, unlike some idiotic and messy elected officials, because I know that it's bad and wrong to incite violence and accept no consequences for my actions. I'm responsible for the impact that I have on people. It's your job to be constructive and give us the tools to build a better life. Tell us you can do it, not they are out to get you. Stop sowing division and help us, you fucking jackasses. Thanks to us, we've already got your biggest obstacle to passing gun laws out of the way, the NRA. They're not what they once were. Thanks to us, the NRA, which was an organization that was very publicly holding you hostage with terrorist threats and embarrassing propaganda, no longer has the hold on you that it used to, Congress. You could have made some real change in the past 4 years and shown them who's boss. Take the checks that they wrote you and not cash them. But that's just me. I see people suffering and try to help. I see problems with relatively simple solutions and try to fix them. Again, that's just me. It's kind of embarrassing, though, to be this adamant that there is no problem and there is no reason to pass gun laws. We saw you cash those checks. We know that you know gun violence is an issue. We brought the topic to you with international attention and resources 4 years ago. We as children did the heavy lifting for you. Act your age, not your shoe size, Congress. All you had to do was pass the fucking gun laws, and you didn't even do that. I don't know how to convince you that you should care about people. You were not elected to make decisions for us. You were elected to pass our will into law. You cannot ignore the fact that almost 100% of citizens in this country want background checks. Why won't you pass it? Is it the money you're making from all the gun manufacturers, which increases every time another white supremacist terrorist attack occurs? Is it all the money you're making from the prison industrial complexes? From policing? How much money do you make every time someone dies? Why do you only realize the impact of this problem when it hits you personally? You ought to be ashamed. Now, you may feel offended, Congress, at the tone of voice that I have used towards you. You may say that I've shown my true colors and should no longer be listened to as a force for peace. But I am not speaking for people to listen to me. We're all in agreement about this. We feel the same way. I'm preaching to the choir. I'm speaking directly to you, Congress. There is no peace in this country, not so long as you stay feigning ignorance and denying change. I am sick of watching you people play political games like this is a TV show. I will not hold my tongue in the effort of maintaining your fragile egos and playing games that I had no hand in creating. After 4 years, I got my degree. What did you do? Thank you, everybody.
Thank you for joining us today. Thank you for joining us this program.